Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Next to Madison. This is episode 146. I am so excited. We are talking about one of my favorite subjects. I know you're going to guess, cryptocurrency. That's it. Yes, we are talking crypto. There is a specific crypto we're actually talking about today. I'm sitting down with the chief operating officer of a company called Algorand. They trade, their token is Algo. It's available on Binance and various other exchanges. You can always find out what coins are on what exchanges by going to coingecko.com, so check that out. Very interesting company, one that I've personally invested in. Again, this is not financial advice. This is just opinion, so please take this as a learning experience and always invest at your own risk. Never invest more than you can afford to lose. But this is a very exciting platform. If you go on Twitter and you type in Algo, you'll see a lot of people talking about this company, and some people saying, oh, it's going to be better than Ethereum, it's going to be bigger, it's faster, less gas fees. So we're going to do a deep dive into this company, and I encourage all of you to listen from the beginning to the end and decide if Algorand's right to add to your crypto portfolio. I know for me, when I first bought, they were kind of, it was in the bull run in November. And I bought just a little bit of it. I kind of FOMO'd into it a little bit. They have a partnership with Skybridge Capital, which is owned by a previous guest of ours, Anthony Scaramucci. And I said, okay, I'm going to get some of that. And obviously we hit a bear market, price went down. And when the price went just under $1, I said, oh my gosh, that's a great value. And I picked up some more. It's also a stakeable coin, so you can earn more just for holding the coin. But we're going to really find out what makes Algo different, what makes it work, why is it valuable, why you should add it to your portfolio. And again, this is not financial advice. This is just an opinion of myself and our guest. So please, please, please do your own due diligence and your research. I want to know more about Algo. I want to know where the future, where they see this company going, what exactly it does. I think a lot of people that I in all these crypto groups, and I went to Ethereum Denver, and I think that a lot of these people just kind of hear about a crypto, whether it's on Discord or on Twitter or through a friend, and instead of doing their research, they just kind of buy it. But really understanding what you're buying can make all the difference in the world, and also help you determine which percentage of your portfolio you're going to designate to possibly that crypto. So we all know about Bitcoin, we all know about Ethereum, are kind of the main two. Ripple's been in the news a lot as well, but there's a lot of altcoins that really, really are coming up, and it's a good time because they're cheap, and so your upside is a lot bigger on that. So I'm going to stop talking because we need to learn about Algorand. Okay, we are back with our guest, Sean Ford, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Algorand. So excited about this. Tell us, what does Algorand do? Just so everyone has a full understanding.
Well, that's great. So thanks for having me. It's great to meet you. So Algorand ultimately is it's blockchain, obviously, and the focus of what we do is to provide for the sort of simple, secure, and frictionless creation and exchange of value. And value can be defined in any number of ways. It can be digital assets. It can be real estate. It could be knowledge. It could be information. But the idea is, how do we provide people with a very low barrier to entry to be able to exchange anything of value anywhere in the world with absolute finality and security?
Right. Perfect. Okay. So, and what was the vision behind starting this company, and when did it start?
Yeah. So it was started around 2017, I think officially. Okay. That was Sylvia McCallie, who is a Turing Award-winning MIT professor, also won the Gödel Prize. The Turing Award is, essentially the Nobel Prize for computer science. Sylvia's many creations included things like zero knowledge proofs, which are critical across the entire blockchain space, and verifiable random function, which is a way that consensus can operate, again, fairly broad across the entire blockchain space. Silvio being, really could lay claim to the sort of, one of the founders of modern day cryptography. Silvio observed Bitcoin and that blockchain and felt like, wow, this is unbelievably transformative, but it could be done better. It could be done faster, and it could be done in a more secure way, and it could be done more, more cheaply, and it could be done all of these, sort of, more, modern, technically modern ways that allow people to sort of access and use the technology more readily than they could with Bitcoin. So he proceeded to write a paper on how that could be created. Gathered up a bunch of colleagues, luminaries from MIT, proved that it could work, and then in 2018 really formed the company and launched in June of 2019, where the protocol went live at that point.
So what was the first exchange it was listed on?
Oh, geez. It was on, Coinbase was very early. You're talking about the currency. So, like if you talk about the algo, which is separate, the algo plays a very important role in the technology of Algorand beyond just being a currency. But the exchanges, we're on over the currency's listed on, I don't know the exact number, but let's say, 50 plus exchanges around the world. And the first, actual use of the blockchain was just to start to, demonstrate the things that we thought were missing in the market, specifically scalability that didn't degrade user experience, performance, and security, and the fact that it was completely decentralized from the launch. Decentralized computing is a very big challenge to do well, because you usually have to trade off speed and performance and security for that. But given how we executed the launch, we were able to sort of solve all three of those problems in one place, which we've called the trilemma, and began demonstrating the ability of the blockchain to process high volumes of transactions very early on.
This is amazing, but it's like such complex stuff. And I was saying in my intro, it's interesting how people will hear about coins on Twitter or Discord or through their friends, and before doing any research, they just jump in and buy them. And
yeah, it's really it's a particular. So I talked about this at Decipher, which was our first sort of community conference in Miami. I think it was in December, and things are blurring, but let's just say it was the end of last year, November, December timeframe. And the idea that every industry that starts that has some substance to it begins with a lot of a lack of rigor and a high degree of speculation. Seen it with the oil industry, gold, land, early days of the internet, and people like to grab onto messages that are more sensational in tone. And I think Algorand has always eschewed those from the very beginning. In fact, we've been criticized in many ways for eschewing the sensational and really focusing on building long-term value and very credible, very dependable technology that people can use for a variety of useful exchanges.
It's amazing. And so what was the partnership with Skybridge? What was the reason kind of behind that, and how are you guys working together?
Yeah, so if you step a little bit further back, there's a lot of again, flashy headlines about capital pouring into projects, and Skybridge is one of four major, what we would call, capital sources of investment into the Algorand ecosystem. Borderless Capital was early, and they brought several $100 million of capital to invest in really the infrastructure of Algorand initially, and now migrating over to investing in the ecosystem and activating the ecosystem more heavily. But they're bringing over $500 million in, and you've got Michael Arrington and Arrington Capital. Michael Arrington is the founder of TechCrunch. He, with Arrington Capital, has announced several $100 million fund on Algorand. There's a partnership, there's a venture out there that's HiveMind, which is run by Matt Zhang, who is a fairly senior Citibank executive who left and decided to build a different type of fund that would invest again in various ecosystems, including Algorand, and that was a little over $1 billion. And then Skybridge with Anthony, getting to your question, he was another individual who really represents, ironically, a connection point between traditional finance and traditional capital, and this new wave of financial infrastructure and blockchain that we're seeing quite a lot of traction with. And so he became someone who has announced a several $100 million fund that is going to be building again on Algorand, but really focusing on certain regions in the world, as well as bridging that traditional business or that traditional capital into this new financial infrastructure. And Anthony's been an early outspoken believer in Bitcoin and in blockchain, and just seemed to have a great resident, sort of a base of knowledge and passion for the space and being out in front. And so, with all of those investments, we're talking several $billion have been, made available and are being deployed from outside parties to help activate the Algorand ecosystem. So, we feel like Anthony's a key part of that, and he's become a big contributor.
I mean, yeah, it's just amazing how much money is actually behind you guys.
We're very lucky. And I think, again, what we talk about is this is all about building enduring value and really moving away from that speculation in the space and having it move over to sort of rigor and a focus on the quality and reliability of the technology that's underlying, very important critical transactions for everyone that uses it, and that's where our focus is.
Okay, so what are the types of companies that would use the Algorand ecosystem? Just financial mainly?
No, it's a variety. So we have several different buckets. I would say that just to give you a sense, we've got. It's kind of nice to say this. I think I've lost track the number of projects that are now building on Algorand. We used to when you start, you're very focused on all of them, but we have 2 or 3 launching every week that we just hear about, because remember, Algorand is public and permissionless. So anyone, if anywhere, for any purpose really, can come use the Algorand blockchain. There's no gating mechanism, and as a result, there's a lot of organic growth that's really started to accelerate. We see a number of different areas where there's a significant traction. Certainly, the DeFi space, broadly defined, the creation of borrow, lend, exchanges. There's a decentralized, options markets and things that are coming that have launched in Algorand. There's all sorts of those sort of next wave of digital innovation that have come to us, and that continues to grow. But we've really seen a lot of traction in the NFT space and becoming a marketplace, a place where people can create marketplaces for NFTs. And everybody, when they hear NFTs, they think sports or they think collectibles. But commercial real estate is, by definition, an NFT, where people are tokenizing homes and or real estate and or tranches of assets that are backed by real estate, and those are being launched. To gaming, the metaverse is something that I think everyone is excited about, and a lot of the virtual economies that are coming to fruition are certainly very exciting. I think, again, we're attracting the same kind of credible partners that are looking to build sort of in-game experience or virtual experience and tokenize that experience and create the loyalty incentives for sustainability and the environment. So we're seeing a lot of movement in there, and then obviously we feel like we're picking up a lot of space and a lot of traction in the music industry as it relates to NFTs as well, with companies like Oculus and others that have chosen Algorand as a place to launch and really help, reorient the economics for the creator economy in ways that are more favorable to creators themselves.
Yeah, because I think when most people hear like NFTs, for example, because most of them are launched on the Ethereum network, but I like Ethereum, but their gas fees are insane.
Right. I mean, so it's almost it's a barrier that exists that is insurmountable for many.
Yeah. Right.
That are, I mean, the fees that by themselves. I mean, it's just sort of adding on to your point, but I would agree. I mean, just to give you a point. We launched the Italian music rights organization SIAE. They launched in one morning about 4 million NFTs on Algorand that represented the rights for all of the 100,000 or so Italian musicians and artists, so that they make them as a first step towards making them tradable and more efficient and all of the good things that you see in that space. That took a few hours to launch an Algorand, and it cost about $9,000. The same launch and issuance of those NFTs on Ethereum would be, conservatively about $250 million. And
what?
So per NFT, if you're launching and creating an NFT, you pick your number, $30, $40, $50, $60 to do that, multiply it by 4 million.
Oh my gosh.
So you're talking about a quantum leap in terms of performance and accessibility to people that, most artists are not, Jay-Z and Justin Bieber. They're not. I mean, they're every penny counts, and their art is their passion, and it could be art, it could be music, same thing. And it really allows for the participation for the 98, 99% of artists in the world on a blockchain, on a platform like Algorand.
Yeah, and it's so cool. I see a lot of these, you'll hear about these broke artists that were broke, and then all of a sudden they started selling NFTs, and now they can more than pay for their lifestyle, which is just amazing to hear.
Well, the funny thing, Madison, is that we're at a place where I think as a society, we've been really conditioned to give up our most valuable assets for nothing.
Yes. Like putting money in the bank is a perfect example.
Well, how about Facebook as an example?
Oh, don't even.
You've given up all of your information, date of birth, what you like to buy. I mean, the list goes on. For what? I mean, look, you get to stay in touch with your friends and see some pictures, and oftentimes, sadly, get very irritated, on an ongoing basis. That being said, you should be compensated for sharing that information. That's how they make their money. And so if you think about artists, whether it's music or painting or digital art or pick your art, broadly speaking, there's a lot of intermediaries that are taking a significant portion of the profits and or the revenues from that art. That really is largely because it's about marketing and distribution for the artist. And that's fair, but you're in a world now where it's that sort of service has been eroded greatly. And artists can come in and retain the vast majority of their creative, the benefits of their creation in a place like Algorand. And it's super exciting to see that happen.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's like you're not only you're creating a value system for everybody, not just yourself. Like, I feel like that all the businesses were kind of started where it was like, oh, us first, and then we'll reward the people. Versus now it's like,
Right.
The power in the people's hands, which is such a great thing to see.
Absolutely. And it's just, I think we're still at the early stages, but it is accelerating rapidly. And people are waking up saying this doesn't make sense. There's a better way.
Well, exactly. Like I mentioned with the banks, you know what I mean?
Correct. That's right.
I look back and laugh because before DeFi banks kind of came around, it was like we just used to willingly put our money in these banks. And if you did have a savings there, let's say a lot of people will have savings because it's their emergency fund and the rest will be invested. They were paying you nothing, but yet they were lending it out at a very high rate. And we just accepted it. We just said, okay, make all this money on us. And now it's like, I don't think so.
Well, not only that, but so you're even talking about, I think that's a great point. I agree completely. And let's think about the people that don't have a minimum amount of money to establish a savings account in the first place.
Or
there's minimums around the world. There's over 2 billion people around the world unbanked.
Isn't that amazing?
And it's not because, and by the way, think about how do you earn interest? How do you participate in any form of upside prosperity? It's, the United States is in many ways, we become very myopic, but if you start to look at the rest of the world, there's people whose sole connection to financial prosperity is their phone. And if they have one, if they have a network they can connect to, and if they do, is there a minimum balance required for them to simply put money in and have it be safe? Or to acknowledge that they own what they own property. So, there's a real, there's an untapped, economic growth engine that I think the right blockchains. So like I said, not all blockchains are public permissionless with minimal, insignificant transaction fees. But let's say you take the approach Algorand did, you're talking about a massive engine of potential GDP growth that could be unlocked around the world. And I think, again, we're right at the beginning of that happening more and more.
It's just such exciting times. Like how
it is.
They're changing, and all of a sudden, like there's more ways for people to get wealthy now than there ever have been before, I feel like.
I think that's right. And I think I think that there's also, ironically, there's more information at people's fingertips to become educated about the right way to go about building value. And ultimately, is one of my little stump sayings is that, the thing that's going to get you there is the same thing that's always gotten people there. Do your own research, work your ass off, and make your own judgments from a variety of perspectives, contributing to those judgments, and then go. And I think, there's a lot of folks that there's very few, let's be a millionaire overnight plans. You have to take a substantive long-term view towards building a business. And that's hard. That's hard.
No, absolutely. So, but yeah, the crypto space, I just love the crypto space. I think it's just amazing. Like when I started diving in like 19, I kind of really just dove in and just learning about it. I was like, oh my gosh, the government can't mess this up. I'm in, because I don't like the government.
Yes. I'm
like, they mess up everything. They can't touch it. Oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened.
Yeah, I do think, look, I'm going to take a perspective on this general topic, which is, like Algorand, we are very interested in understanding what just clarity around how things are going to be managed in globally and in the United States. And I think we've again always we appreciate that input. And to be honest, blockchain has a massive potential upside impact for governments and government services. There's ways to do simple things, ranging from, if you look at, again, I'm keeping this completely apolitical. It's like if you think a vaccine passport is important, like Colombia, you can track, have your vaccine passport like they're doing on Algorand, and that's being tracked for people so that you can keep a record and have that information. If you want to do something as simple as contractor bids for governments, and have that be completely transparent, and have auctions or bidding be done on a blockchain, so there's no way for corruption, that can be a benefit. If you are worried about where the money is that you're contributing to various charities around the world, that can be tracked, and that can be managed in a way that doesn't allow for corruption or that money to be put into the wrong hands. There's lots of simple that have nothing to do with digital currency. But that could be hugely valuable for governments, and some have taken a more forward-leaning view in terms of the sort of environments in which blockchain and technology is built. And I think those governments that do that around the world are going to reap the benefits of it down the road. I think resisting innovation has never been a good outcome for anyone in any organization. Helping to provide input and guidance into that innovation, I don't think anybody has a problem with that.
Right. Well, exactly. You take some of the government agencies that are very slow and seem to be very incompetent, which is like the DMV and the IRS. They could use some blockchain stuff to start automating things.
Yeah, change is hard, and governments
Right.
are not. Governments are never at the very cutting edge of those issues. I mean, if you even go back to the internet, and when the internet, I'm old enough to remember when that happened. It oftentimes it's perceived as either a fad and won't be going anywhere. That's usually the first thing, or that when it does get some traction, it's oftentimes by certain folks perceived as either a challenge or threatening to the status quo. And so it creates a bunch of concerns. And when it's hard to understand, to your earlier point, it's not the simplest thing in the world to get your head around. It takes time for there to be a learning curve for people to really know, how they can use it and what they can do. That's why we really get excited about all of these sort of native DeFi apps. These, gaming companies, these, other places that are deploying, capital in ways that allow people to, do all the things I said before, exchange value, earn some sort of, income, develop great tools and applications, build businesses, all of that.
Yeah. So what is your opinion, your personal opinion, not your business opinion, on the metaverse?
Well, my personal opinion is
personal means because I was watching something on TV recently, and there was this woman on there. I don't know if she was from a company. I didn't see that part. She was talking about how her avatar was like basically gangbanged in the metaverse, and there was nobody there to stop it. And she kept going, stop, 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 and finally had to rip her headset off. And I'm thinking, and you're seeing these people with these headsets on, and I get the value I get from a business perspective. I want to participate because I want to make money. But from a humanity standpoint, I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, look, I think so let's break this into a couple of buckets. I think one is that the metaverse has certainly an infinite number of very positive and very interesting ways that people can start to engage. The fact is, it's here. I mean, it's just a question of, how here is it in terms of the robust set of capabilities and uses and protections. It's here. And, there are ways, if you look at just gaming where everybody likes to go, I mean, there are games that have more people in them, like participating in that virtual environment, than countries. I mean, there's tens of millions of people in certain games, and there's many countries that don't have tens of millions of people. So you start to see the GDP of these games. It's astounding, the economic activity that's happening. And so that's super interesting because, then you get into things where you could create games to incent the development of business. You could create experiences to incent sustainable practices at a local level, an individual level. People can make trade-offs where you might feel helpless if you're excited about climate, excited about doing something around climate change or carbon footprint. Many people will say, yeah, I'd love to do my part, but I don't know how. Well, these games can give you an avenue to do that and allow for, a contribution back or offsetting your carbon footprint. So there's a bunch of positives that exist that are there and only, I think, expanding. I would say, though, that, certainly as something grows this quickly, to the unfortunate example you shared, I think that, there has to be some, additional work done on the edges and certainly right in the middle if this is something that really happens to people that is sort of a game by game or an experience by experience thing. But obviously there has to be some amount of consumer protection. I'll phrase it that way.
Right, exactly. Well, my concern was just like if we're all like sitting in a room in a corner by ourselves with these headsets on. I mean, we were designed to be interacting, to hug each other, touch each other, talk to each other, to have
Oh,
that human interaction. Like, look what COVID did to the society.
no, well, if you want to go down that path, you're going to find a kindred spirit. I mean, I don't want to sound like the old guy who says, I can't believe these kids these days. They're not talking to one another. But there really is I mean, if you think about it psychologically, and again, I'm not a doctor.
Right.
I read things, but this is completely me. Yeah, it's a little scary because if you think about it, people have challenges in their life. Certainly the pandemic has only exaggerated the stress and created more disconnection person to person. I think it's created more hostility online, again, my opinion only, and more a more polarizing view of all issues, which is problematic. But to your point in particular, if you're in a situation of high stress, you just don't like the life you're in, it's easier and easier to escape to something where you're the hero, where you have power, where you feel like you can do amazing things. I mean, if you're just thinking in a game environment, and so it is a very low barrier to escape. And then back to your point, Madison, it continues to fracture the sort of human connection, and I think allows people to avoid the messiness that's a part of every real relationship that needs to be worked through. And so I do think, there's a part of me that hopes there's balance that is reestablished across the board.
Right, absolutely. So do you own any land in the metaverse or NFTs or?
I do have NFTs. I do have a number of NFTs, art pieces, and different things that I've enjoyed, and some music, that kind of thing. But no, I haven't gotten into Sandbox or any of the. I did see Second Life when it sort of came up, and that was a pretty cool thing, and that's getting a little bit of retraction. But I do not own property in the metaverse. No.
Yeah, I know. I
It's
see
cool.
this and I'm like, huh? Like, how would that even really work? And yeah, just the whole thing is.
Well, imagine though, Madison. Imagine this. Like, imagine. Let's say you're an environment that has 20 million users, and you create ability to own part of this finite environment, and you allow. I mean, even something as simple as people to advertise. If you put a billboard up in Fortnite, that'd be amazing, right? Can you imagine? The Madison Malloy podcast in Fortnite. Someone's running along there. They're like, "What? Oh, there you go. There's there's my billboard."
Yeah, I should do that. Actually, that's actually a good idea.
Oh, that's a free one.
Yeah, I'll take it.
If it doesn't work, I take no responsibility whatsoever.
Right, exactly. So I know, because it's all I remember following the Mana project early, like before it was even an ICO, right? Like we couldn't get it because we're in the States. I mean, there's other workarounds around that, but we'll talk offline. But I remember the ICO and kind of following it, but then I got distracted. I was doing something else with another crypto company, and it was one of those things. I'm like, damn it, I should have bought that damn coin. But a lot more of them, right?
Fair enough. But we're, I do think that it is, ultimately, it's funny because one of the things that I think I would be thrilled if, Algorand largely became the invisible infrastructure for all of this financial exchange. Like, there's no part of, I've said this a bunch of times in other companies that I've started and been a part of, is that the extent to which the technology gets in the way of the relationship is the extent to which the technology has failed the relationship. So if we're having a meeting on Zoom, Zoom's freezing, it's not connecting, we're getting dropped off, the tech is getting in the way of our conversation and the relationship that we have. If my phone doesn't work and it's getting in the way. You want seamlessness in terms of whatever relationship you're trying to build with a product, with a company, with a person, with a colleague. And I think, from our perspective, we just continue to strive towards such a seamless experience, sort of like what you see with the internet most of the time today, where it's like, you just log in. I got a Wi-Fi signal, I'm on.
Right. You just
We would love
expect it to work.
just expect it to work. And that's why, if you look at the early days, why people were always like, well, blockchain's a solution looking for a problem. Well, that was a statement created when it was, Bitcoin was intentionally slowing the chain down to 8 minutes just because they needed to do it to give people enough time to solve their, algorithm and to make sure that it was final, they needed an hour. And so it's like, I've said this before, if I told you, hey, Madison, this is the latest and greatest this house is built with the latest technical infrastructure, I'm going to give this to you. You're like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But wait, so here's the thing though, if you go into a room as a little catch and you throw the light switch on, it's going to take like 8 minutes for the light to come on. Is that okay? You're going to be like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to take that house. And that was Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So now, like projects like Algorand, you come and you throw the light goes on. You're like, oh, that makes sense. So now people are looking at these next generation chains like Algorand as being something that removes all the frictions and doesn't degrade the user experience, but allows you to actually do even more than you could without it. And that's the point I think we've reached with a number of the legitimate blockchain projects out there that are allowing now for more credible and responsible development. And we're seeing it in the form of institutional capital coming in.
Perfect. So you're telling me I should buy more coin.
I'm not saying anything.
I know. I was trying to get it out of you.
I'm saying that I'm a believer in quality blockchain technology. That's what I'm saying. That is what.
Okay, perfect. No, because there was somebody tweeted something last night about you guys, like, mark my words, Algo will disrupt Ethereum.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, you can say that, right?
Yes.
And
of course.
I think all the stuff you talked about.
Yeah. No, I think legitimately. I think if you're, from a user perspective, use case perspective, efficiency perspective, sustainability perspective, I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that happen.
Yeah. So, because you'll hear certain things, like I'll read the Palm Beach newsletter sometimes and some other things I subscribe to, but, people are calling for a $10,000 Ethereum. But if there's all these companies coming in to disrupt it, that's where I get a little hesitant.
Fair enough. I mean, I think Ethereum has a lot of other blockchains that are, shards or essentially versions of Ethereum that have been launched that are very interoperable with Ethereum. And there's a big community there. But, again, as with anything else, the next generation of developers and or people that are trying to start businesses in a simpler and easier way, they're migrating, and we're seeing a significant number of people that are just starting on Algorand and also leaving Ethereum because of those capabilities that we bring to the market.
Absolutely. And what is your supply cap right now? Like, is there an infinite amount of tokens, or
I mean, it's published. So that the Algorand Foundation handles all of the sort of money, but the published is 10 billion algos is the total supply that
and that'll
exists.
never increase. It's just 10 billion.
Right. And the circulating supply, it depends on where you look, 6-7 billion algos are in circulation, and the rest are all controlled by the Algorand Foundation and who manage the money supply and manage the governance and manage all of those things. We don't handle that at the technology company.
Okay. And was there a reason that 10 billion was the number that was picked, or how is that decided for these cryptos? If you don't.
No, I don't. I think, well, it's a good, the answer to that question is you can create, it really is somewhat of an irrelevant number in the sense that you can create as many as, whether Ethereum is an infinite amount of, there's no cap on those pieces. So for us, I think, look, when we looked at the economy, the global economy, we looked at the global value, we looked at the potential use cases, and a desire to, make sure that we keep transaction fees at the right level to remove, that was the number we came up with. It was a number of different vectors went into that decision.
Yeah, because it is interesting, like when you're looking at different projects, and looking at the supply and what the total cost is, and you can get a better gauge of what kind of the potential can be.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's true. You never know. So here's another question. I know obviously Algo is your favorite, but what other cryptocurrencies are you very interested in?
Well, I'm going to be very, very boring. So I, certainly, I believe Bitcoin is. I'm very much aligned with Anthony's perspectives on Bitcoin being a sort of a lasting disruptor and source of value in the global economy. There's a number of other projects out there that have taken I think a strong technical approach that we respect, and I would just say, my perspective alone is that over time, the quality of the tech and the value in the ecosystem itself, combined with technical quality, is what's going to ultimately create long-term value. And so, I mean, for me, I really do just stay, heads down on, I'm a believer in the space, and, obviously I'm a believer in Algorand, and that's where I am.
Okay. So I wasn't going to get your coin portfolio out of you. I know. It's always so interesting. I mean, I've got, you probably know, my buddy over at Crypto News, who was also on this podcast. And he'll text me. I'll wake up to a lot of texts in the middle of the night. Hey, I'm buying this, buying more of this, doing more of that. And it's great. And I love it. And some I can do, but I'm not making $1 million plus a month yet. So I can't buy it all. You want to.
Can't buy it all. And again, it's definitely, it's still early. It's early days. And you have to have a stomach for believing in the long term. And again, I'm going to come back to what we said earlier. People have to do their research. There's no single source of truth. You have to find, the different perspectives that you respect, and ultimately look long term. And that's with the development and adoption of blockchain. That's completely separate from anything to do with any currency. But I do think that a long-term view and patience are the right attributes to finding your way. Plus, again, doing your own research and being rigorous on that front.
Yes, absolutely. And do you think this crypto boom is a little bit maybe like the .com boom, where we're going to see a lot of altcoins kind of disappear soon, but the real strong projects will stay?
I do think ultimately, I mean, we've said this publicly a bunch of times, that there's, we expect there to be ultimately a handful of chains that win at the end of the day. And it could be that some are consolidated and that not all of them fall away, but we do think that. I mean, there's an awful lot of currencies and asset types that exist in the traditional finance that I think are just starting to get traction in the sort of digital sort of crypto world and or blockchain space. And so, do I think ultimately there'll be some consolidation around tech? Yes. The implications, though, for other projects could be any number of things. Certainly, some will fail. Some may be absorbed. Some may, merge. So there's lots of ways where that consolidation can occur. But again, our focus is to be one of the fundamental components of technical infrastructure. And there'll be, we think, handful. I don't know what the number, 5 to 10, that end up filling that role.
Yeah, I mean, that's exciting, and obviously I can understand, especially now after this interview, that Algo is one of the ones that's gonna have long-term longevity.
Your mouth to God's ears. That's what I would say. But we agree with you, by the way. So.
Right, exactly. So I mean, there's a couple, like I call them shit coins, meme coins, that I've bought that I know is just a straight gamble. I didn't put any more than $1,200 in them, but they were so cheap that I was like, got them on a China exchange, and we'll see. But most of the stuff I will invest in, I make sure that they have a strong project behind them and a strong team behind them.
Yeah. And just so that I mean, I'm going to just clarify, like, the algo on Algorand is the currency, the coin that is used in the system, but it's also the means by which the system perpetuates blocks. Mm-hmm. So it fills a technical role as a key technical component to how Algorand is able to operate so efficiently, and it fills, a store of value and a means of exchange. So it's got this interesting dual purpose that not all of the projects out there have. It's really a critical technical component of how we execute globally.
That's great. Okay, and I know you can't talk about this, but we can just mention, just so you guys know, Algorand is you can stake it. It's a staking coin. So you can't find it, but you can
proof
stake.
of stake. Yes, you stake.
which is good. And you guys also have your own wallet.
Yes, we have our own wallet. And we have there's a number of different components in terms of the technical innovations that are launching. I mean, we have a bunch of things that are coming from an interoperability perspective that we've talked about to allow us to be, I think, really sophisticated in a more decentralized way of porting assets chain to chain. Our TPS, which is another topic for another time, but it is oftentimes one of the least understood sensational metrics that are used out there to grab eyeballs. But if you start digging in, maybe there's some inflation with certain projects around the effectiveness of their TPS. We have an improvement going to 10,000 transactions per second in the next, I know it's in the next, let's say 6 to 8 weeks. And that's real transactions. That is not, us pumping transactions into the chain. That is not degraded for complexity of transaction or regionally oriented. This is the same sort of Algorand transaction that you see now will be almost 10x, and that we're excited about, and that gives us plenty of capacity to handle really any opportunity that comes along.
That's amazing. You've worked hard, but you must feel so lucky to be in such a great part of such a great project.
Yes, feel grateful and lucky, and the fact I get to have these conversations I feel lucky for that. And I would also say that 4 years ago when I came to the company, people thought I was crazy. Like if you look at you're going into blockchain, not you, Sean. I took it in the sense not that it was about my intellect; it was about the risk, but it could have been both. And it was one of those things where now. There's a lot of people who are very interested, a lot of questions, and it's kind of it's very gratifying, and I definitely feel lucky to be with such a good project for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such an exciting world. It's just there's so much to learn and so much to gauge, and I just like the space better, than traditional Wall Street, which is so stuffy and sooty and boring and restrictive and blah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the Mary Poppins Bank, right? That's what you think of. The Mary Poppins Bank, where there's the bankers sitting there at top. It's very stuffy.
Yeah, and this is just more jeans, baseball caps, just make money. It's about the value, and so yeah, this was great. So where can people go to find out more about the project? Algorand.com?
Algorand.com, Algorand Foundation. It will give you all of the information on governance and the all of the different aspects of the money supply that we don't handle. We have a developer site, developer.algorand.org, I think, and then we obviously I think following Twitter, whatever you love or hate about it, tends to be a place where there's at least a lot of activity. Twitter, Discord, Reddit, all of those venues, and certainly following people at the companies. You can follow Steve Kokinos, myself, Kelly Callahan, Silvio, folks like that. And I would just suggest that if people are interested in getting informed in the space, they can certainly start to search for. I think CoinDesk puts out their top 100. You can just start to search for the people that are sort of most visible, not necessarily, I would say, the most innovative, but the most visible people, and just build your collection on Twitter. That way you'll have more information, you know what to do with.
Yes. I mean, I went through and I just started following more crypto people, and, now my Twitter feed's filled with very interesting information. So
yes.
Great. And it's a network thing too. I've met a lot of great people in this space, and, it's nice when you understand it, people want to talk to you more about certain projects. But so you guys, again, invest at your own risk, do your own research, never invest more than you can afford to lose. Go have fun, be kind to one another, and manifest wealth, because there's no reason that we should be struggling and broke. So this is your year. Go out and do something about it. I'm thankful for each and every one of you. I'm thankful to you, Sean, for coming on. I know you're a very, very busy man. And we'll see you guys next time to find out. I can't even speak today. Next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@next2madison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.